from Luke chapter 14 and verses 15 to 23. Is that right?
Yeah.
The parable of the great banquet. When one of those at the table with him heard this, he said to Jesus, "Blessed is the man who will eat at the feast in the kingdom of God." Jesus replied, "A certain man was preparing a great banquet and invited many guests. At the time of the banquet, he sent his servant to tell those who had been invited, 'Come, for everything is now ready.' But they all alike began to make excuses. The first said, 'I have just bought a field. I must go and see it. Please excuse me.' Another said, 'I have just bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I'm on my way to try them out. Please excuse me.' Still another said, 'I have just got married, so I can't come.' The servant came back and reported this to his master. Then the owner of the house became angry and ordered his servant, 'Go out quickly into the streets and alleys of the town and bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind and the lame.' 'Sir,' the servant said, 'what you ordered has been done, but there is still room.' Then the master told his servant, 'Go out to the roads and country lanes and make them come in, so that my house will be full. I tell you, not one of those men who were invited will get a taste of my banquet.'" This is the word of God.
Excuses, excuses, excuses. I can tell you that as a pastor, I hear quite a lot of them, actually. Someone said, "It is better to offer no excuse than a bad one." And boy, I've heard some bad ones. Anyhow, I won't embarrass people by quoting them now, but they probably know who they are. But here, Jesus, the great storyteller, tells this parable, this story, and here we find people making excuses. And Jesus describes the excuses that they offered as they were invited to this great banquet. Now, it does remind me of one of my favourite TV programmes, which is Come Dine With Me. I don't know if you've seen that. Have you seen that? The knives and forks are out, aren't they, when there's a group of strangers who come together and they cook meals for each other sort of across the week, and there's lots of excuses that come out. And that might be everything from why the food was a bit cold, or why the after-dinner entertainment wasn't very good, or why the place settings were untidy. There's excuses that come out because these people are trying to win £1,000 for their dinner party. So there's plenty of excuses going around. And I mean, there was one lady, I think her menu included roadkill.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I do. But there's some very sort of flamboyant meals that are offered. And that reminds me, do stay for lunch. They can't hear me in there, that's all right. In this story, Jesus tells us, and it's recorded here by Luke, the excuses offered by these dinner party guests. And we see how foolish they were to turn down this offer that was given to them. It says, "A certain man was preparing a great banquet and had invited many guests. At the time of the banquet, he sent his servant to tell those who had been invited, 'Come, for everything is now ready.'" So it's an invitation that shows love. He prepared this wonderful banquet. A lot of time and effort had gone into it. It's more than just an evening meal. It's more than just beans on toast round the telly, isn't it? It's a banquet. It's something special. A lot of time and love has been lavished on it. And the banquet that Jesus is describing in this passage is more than just a very grand meal. Because the banquet is a symbol of the life that God has in store for each one of us. The banquet is a parable, a story of salvation through Jesus Christ. Because there are dishes and dishes, and the dishes contain forgiveness. There are trays of peace. There are bowls of joy. And when God invites you to come to his banquet, he's not inviting you to something boring and tedious. He's inviting you to a blessing, to something that's good, to something that's going to be good for you. Now, I confess, when you look at some Christians, you might get the impression that a Christian life wasn't a feast, more of a famine. But I want to give you some good news, because when God invites you to salvation through Jesus, he doesn't invite you to a famine. It's a feast. It's something good, a great banquet. Some non-Christians would believe that joy, fun and Christianity are sort of mutually exclusive, that never the two would meet. But it's not accurate, it's not right. And you would see this when you spend time in the middle of a loving, caring fellowship. And I like to think that's what we are here at South Street. This great banquet has been lovingly prepared by God. God gave his Son that you might be invited to this banquet. To those who had been invited, the verse tells us, "Come, for everything is now ready." The invitation is very simple. Come. There's no prerequisites. There's nothing more you need to do. Just come. There's no charge for you to pay, but there is a cost. The good news is that Jesus Christ paid that cost at Calvary. The table is set, and like most banquets, there's a place for you. Have you ever been to one of those really posh banquets where there's that little card folded over and it's got your name on it? Perhaps at a wedding where people try and swap people around. It's a bit of fun, isn't it? But it's an invitation specifically for you. And God makes that invitation specifically for you. Your name is on the invitation. I don't know whether you've received one of those great invitations. My sister, she received an invitation from the Queen and to one of the garden parties. Anyone here been to one of the Queen's garden parties? All right, very good. Perhaps for work, something you've done through work, community. And what was it? What?
TA service.
Oh, right. Territorial Army. Very good. So, for some particular reason, the Queen wants to honour you for what you've done. The difference with God is he just wants to honour you. It's not what you've done. Otherwise, we'd never get any. You have been invited. Your name is on the card. I'm sure it didn't even cross your mind to turn down the invitation from the Queen. would you turn down an invitation from the king? But they all made excuses. Mums, that they unwittingly train their children in the art of excuses with their little notes they write, don't they? Please excuse Tommy from being absent yesterday. He had diarrhea and his boots leak. Please excuse Jimmy for being, it was his father's fault. But then there are those excuses, aren't there, with motorists put on their claim forms. I found a couple of new ones. I know I like the old ones as well, but some new ones. I had one eye on a parked car, another on approaching lorries, and another on the woman behind. I didn't think the speed limit applied after midnight. I started to slow down, but the traffic was more stationary than I thought. I have to give you the old classic. I've been driving for 40 years when I fell asleep at the wheel and had an accident. Apparently in France, they use the same form for notifying insurers of illness, accident or pregnancy. And they've only just changed it apparently because expectant mothers were asked, was the accident caused by a third party? And often the answer was no, it was only my husband. So I think they've changed their forms now. But verse 18 in our passage says they all began to make excuses. The first said, I've bought a field, I must go and see it. Please